Hi Pilgrims, my name is Angie Payne. I'm with the Center for Advanced Spatial Technologies at the University of Arkansas, and I'm excited to be with you today to share some recent updates to the Rising Above Rohwer Reconstructed website. While I wish we could be meeting in person, obviously, it's nice to have this virtual option so that we're all able to share information and still share the pilgrimage, but from the comfort and safety of our own home. So thank you, Kamiko, for organizing this as an option. A little about myself. My background is in history and archaeology, but I've always had an interest in technology. So that landed me at the Center for Advanced Spatial Technologies at the U of A, which is where this project began in 2013. So let's get started. So the Rohwer Reconstructed project began with the recognition that we have a wealth of materials in different collections here in Arkansas that are related to the history of both Rohwer and Jerome. A lot of those materials are unique in that they're not available in any other archive. And before this project, many of those materials were not available digitally. So the impetus for the first phase of the project was to connect to all of these different institutions and to assist in the digitization of those materials, and to also create a centralized online archive to house those. Other parts of the project grew, and those include, in addition to the archive, a series of online maps that help tell the history of the camp, a 3D reconstruction of a barracks block, and then also a project timeline. This project has continued to grow over the past 7 years, and we are now adding materials related to Jerome in the most recent phase. So this project has been largely funded by the Japanese American Confinement Sites Program through the National Park Service. The first 2 phases of work are primarily related to adding materials to the site related to Rohwer, and in the third current phase, we're also adding materials related to Jerome. So hopefully when it's all said and done, we'll have a comprehensive website of Arkansas-based material that are related to both camps here in Arkansas. If you look at the bullets listed under each phase, the first bullet shows all of the different archival institutions that have been a part of this project who have contributed materials to our online archive. And you can see how those numbers of institutions have grown over the years. Of particular mention is also Kimball Erdman, who is in the University of Arkansas Department of Landscape Architecture. He's been our primary research historian on the project and has led a number of students in historic research that has contributed to the final materials present on the final website. Again, I'm with CAST, and our primary role has been to kind of serve the technology. That includes managing the project database, the digital maps, and the 3D reconstruction. So as I've presented on this project before, I think I've been at the last 2 pilgrimages, my primary focus is to walk you through some of the new features on the site. So I'm not going to walk you through everything, but I am going to focus on the new connections graph and also the second version of 3D reconstruction. We'll also be talking about new features that we're going to be adding for Jerome as we do this. So let's go ahead. I think the next move that we should do is just to go straight to the website. So when you first get to the project website, one of the first things that you see is the name Rohwer Reconstructed. What is currently available on this site is the result of the first 2 phases of the project that are again specifically related to Rohwer. As we add materials to the site for Jerome, this is something that will definitely change. So this new homepage is going to have a completely new look. But for right now, let's take a look at what's currently there that's specific to Rohwer. First and foremost is the project archive that currently has over 1,300 items. The project timeline, which provides some historic context for the camp both before, during, and after its closing, and also a series of visualizations. Let's take a closer look at the archive just quickly. So there are a number of unique items that we have available in the archive that are unique to Rohwer. There's artwork, 3D objects, photographs from family collections, personal correspondences, newspaper articles, a variety of unique material. When you select an item from the archive, we have metadata associated with that item. This includes traditional metadata, including the name of the photographer, for example, in this case, a description of the item, a description of what we're seeing. But we also have all of the names that we have documented associated with each item. We have those names recorded as well. And so what this allows us to do is to select an individual and to see all of the items in the archive that we have related to that individual. In this case, with Ruth Yanomoto, I believe she actually participated in the documentary Time of Fear. So we have her interview from Time of Fear, as well as a number of photographs available from her family collections that were then donated to the collections at UALR and uploaded to the archive as part of this project. Another interesting way that we can explore all of the names associated with the archive is through the connections graph. So you can access the connections graph by going to the visualization tab. And the first thing that you see is just kind of a blob of dots, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you first look at it. So there's different ways to explore, but one of the primary methods that I recommend is by searching either by the name of an individual or a topic of interest. So in this case, we're going to search for Ruth Yanomoto again, and we're able to see Ruth's name along with other members of her family. So by selecting Ruth, we get a visual representation of the items that are available in the archive that are related to Ruth. We can hover over the individual item name and also see the names of other people who are referenced, in this case, in a photo that also includes Ruth. So this just provides kind of an interesting visual representation of the items in the archive and how they're related to the people as well. And so if you zoom out, you're able to pan around and look at some of the different features. Here's a yearbook, for example, that includes all of the names that were listed in 1945. So we're able to click on that. And then if we're interested in seeing the actual yearbook itself, we can go view that item in the archive. So this is just kind of an interesting way to explore the different connections that are available between people and items. So another one of the more recent updates to the site is the second version of the visualization for Barracks Block 12. So you're able to access that by going to Visualizations and Explore. And immediately you'll see just kind of a quick video that shows you what the visualization would look like. You're able to download this visualization and install and run it on your own computer. And I will go ahead and do that for you now so you can get a sense of what it looks like. So one of the first things that you'll note, excuse me. So one of the first things that you'll notice when you open the visualization is sound. One of the primary updates that we added in this second version was to include both ambient sound and to also include audio and video segments that help tell the history of Rohwer. The first screen that you see here is just a welcome screen that provides a quick background and history of the camp. Your next option is to choose either a guided tour or a self-explore mode. For those of you who might be experienced gamers, I completely recommend the self-explore mode. If you're not familiar with 3D environments and have never used 3D controls or gaming controls before, then I recommend that you start with a guided tour, and then whenever you're comfortable, you can enter into self-explore mode at any time. One of the primary parts of the story that we wanted to tell for Rohwer is basically how the landscape was transformed by the internees. So the first image that you see is a depiction of what the camp likely looked like when people started arriving in 1942. However, we see lots of images akin to this image that was taken in 1944 that shows a landscape that has completely been transformed. We see how the barracks have been modified to add shade and to allow for better ventilation. We see gardens, both victory gardens and flower gardens that have been planted by the internees. And the primary focus of our visualization was to show this newly transformed landscape that took place in a very short period of time between 1942 and 1944. Now we're going to continue the tour. So with the guided tour option, you're pulled along a path. And every once in a while, you'll come upon a stop, but you're given full control to look around and look at the different features around you. When I hit spacebar, I'm going to receive the information for the first stop.
They were barracks, army barracks with tar paper covering, and they were arranged in very military style, and the mess hall was in the middle. It was a block like this, and about a dozen barracks all in a row, and in the middle of the block was the mess hall, the laundry room, and the shower, and we all...
So one of the primary features of this second version is a series of audio files and also video interviews that describe how people remembered what life was like at Rohwer. There are a series of 12 stops that will guide you through the block, each discussing a different aspect of camp organization, social structure, or camp memory.
Well, they started the school immediately. We were one of the earlier ones there, so they were still constructing barracks when we got there. And so they were working, and there's another thing that every once in a while when I go camping, or I don't go camping that often, but when I go to the forest, and you smell that burning of the leaves or the branches, that brings back memories of Arkansas. Because they were clearing the fields, and they would burn the twigs and the leaves and the branches and so forth. And
so in addition to these new audio and video files, we've also included a number of historic photographs that help paint a better picture of what life was like at Rohwer.
October 31st, 1942. Our home, 381E. Fujino's to the right and the block office to the left. Ought to be quiet. Unit looks good, and empty also. An ugly black stove and a suggestion of a clothes closet. Shelves and rod very low. They must think we are midgets. November 17th, 1942. The child next door is a nerve-wracking source of noise. Bawling, coughing, and jumping up and down. Neighbors banging together furniture 14 hours a day. Nerve-wracking if you're occupied with less noisy pursuits like reading or writing. Excerpts from Diary of Evacuee, October 31st, 1942 to April 21st, 1943.
At any point, you can exit the guided tour mode and explore on your own. Let's go ahead and launch the self-explore mode. In self-explore, you're able to use traditional gaming controls to walk around. You can access all of the information available in the guided tour by interacting with the information point. In addition to the information points, there are additional black and white photos that provide perspectives that are similar to what you see in the visualization. These photos were extremely important in helping us maintain the proper look and feel for the camp. And here's another example. So please take a look at the website, download the visualization, and take a walk around Rohwer. And most importantly, listen to the different accounts that talk about what it was like to live there. If we return to the website, we can take a brief look at other features. In the Visualizations tab, we also have a series of maps that go from a national to a regional perspective and discuss the evacuation of evacuees to Arkansas. As part of the next round of funding, we will include maps that are related to Jerome. And just quickly, I can walk you through some of those maps now. So this is a GIS software, which is the software that we use to create the maps. The area that I have in my view is the area of the Jerome camp as it appears today. You can see in the middle that the cistern that held the water for the camp is still present. And also in the southwest corner, we have the smokestack from where the hospital would have been. These are the two primary features that still exist at Jerome. There's also a few buildings just to the west of the cistern that you can compare. As we begin to look at historic imagery through the years, this is the imprint that the camp left in 1949. This is considerably different from what is visible today. On top of this historic image, we can begin to overlay the structures of the camp. These structures, which can be toggled off and on, were taken from the as-built drawings that were created by the WRA when the camp was constructed. This is just an example of the series of map layers that are compiled together that in the end will be published on the final website. So as the second phase of Rohwer has now wrapped up with the completion of the new connections graph, the addition of archival materials, and the second publication of the block reconstruction, we are now beginning similar efforts for Jerome. As part of the current phase of funding, we are adding over 600 items to the project archive. We are also creating a new series of digital maps for Jerome and expanding the current historic timeline. Finally, we will also work with educators at AETN to create professional development curriculum that will use this website to incorporate history related to the camps in K-12 curriculum. We see this as a vital part of the project that promotes the education of younger populations about the history of Rohwer and Jerome and Japanese American incarceration in Arkansas. There have been a number of people and institutions that have been involved with this project since the very beginning. Again, complete credit goes to the National Park Service for funding these efforts, as well as to a number of project partners that have been working on this from all different corners of the state. I encourage you to check out the Rising Above project website, download the visualization, explore the archive, check out the new connections graph, and please contact us if you have any suggestions or additional information that we can include to make this site better. Thank you for your time.